All right, so explain the significance of the Treaty of Versailles. Detail the punishments, penalties placed on Germany after the First World War. And finally, detail who the Big Four was. The Big Four are the ones coming up with these punishments for Germany after World War One. Batista. There's no ads, are there? Okay, all right. Treaty of Versailles. What's so significant about it? What is it? What do we got? What do we got? I don't know what that is. Go ahead, Chris.
It was a treaty with the state to try and make sure that.
Yeah, good job, right? So after World War One, we talked about the armistice, and we mentioned about how in that rail car, right, we see the end of World War One, the European powers come together, and they have the Armistice Day, right? Veterans Day. But then just about 6 months later, so they want to try to fully come up with a peace negotiation to make sure another war doesn't ever break out. And with that, we have the Big Four. So who's a part of the Big Four? Black, go ahead.
France, Germany, Great Britain, United States.
Well, we got France, right? We got Great Britain, we have the United States, and Italy, right? The Big Four. Okay. So yeah, Germany was a part of these negotiations, but when it came to the layout of the treaty, when it came out to what was really going to be placed on Germany, penalties, punishments, it was all solved with the Big Four. All right, so make sure you guys remember that with Great Britain, France, obviously the two Allied powers, the main ones there. You have Italy, which we talked about. They started the war on Triple Alliance, and then they jumped ship, right? They jump on the side of the Allied powers then. All right, so with the Big Four, their goal is to do what? What is the sole goal of this treaty? Parker. Is it the sole face? Yeah, good job, right? To make sure that Germany never rises to a power again. To try to restrict them, to try to handcuff, literally, to prevent them to rising to power and maybe attempting another conflict. So with that, if you're France, you blame them. So in 1870, who invaded France? Well, we know this is where Germany was unified. They came together, right? And obviously, just 50, 40 years later, we see the same exact thing happen at the start of World War One. So it was one of those issues here, one of these problems that really caused France to look at it and say, well, we want to make sure that we don't get invaded again. Rightfully so. So, and with France, their sole purpose with this treaty is to punish Germany, to burden them, make sure that they never rise to power again. So what do? What was the one penalty, the first penalty we talked about, punishment? Who was blamed for the war, Connor? Germany, right? So the war guilt clause, right? The sole blame of the war placed on Germany. We mentioned it and they really started it. Yeah, okay. In any case, they were blamed for it. They're the sole blame, the war guilt clause placed on them. Good. What else? What else do we talk about? So you got to look at the list. Hold on, go ahead. What's that? Yeah, good job, right? So no longer are they allowed to have a navy. Can you expand your empire without a navy? No, you can't, right? And when it comes to maybe rising as a world power again, you cannot do that if you don't have a navy, right? And we talked a little bit about who threw that ripcord. Who said that they're not allowed to have a navy? Parker. Great Britain, right? Yeah, we talked about that arms race, that naval arms race building up to World War One. And, well, no longer are they allowed to have a navy. All right, good. What else? What? Go ahead.
They lost one line.
Yeah, all right, good job. So when you look at the territories that they held overseas and in Asia and Africa, they're no longer allowed to have those territories. So overseas territories taken away. So there goes your resources, your raw materials coming into the country. That's obviously going to benefit your economy. And don't forget it now. A lot of those resources and materials aren't coming in, so that's going to impact them pretty hard. So standard of living of the people is going to drop clearly without. Also, again, there goes your military bases. Right? Without a navy, you can't really get to these places, but in any case, no overseas territory. Good. All right, what else? Parker. Yeah, good job, right? Yeah, just for defense. Good. So 100,000 troops, that was the limit of their military. And it was only for defensive purposes. So again, we talked about with Germany, what is their nationalism based off of? Based around their military, right? If you take that away, there goes their national pride. Okay, there goes their confidence within their country of becoming a world power. So yeah, that's gone. Good. What else? What else? Anything else? Someone other than Parker. Parker's gone. So not only did they lose their territories overseas, but what about their borders? What about their borders? What territory did they grab from France after the Franco-Prussian War? Remember? Matt? Yeah, good job. So Alsace-Lorraine, good job. So that territory is taken away from them, and the French will occupy that area with their military, and there goes a lot of resources like coal. There goes your connection to the Rhine River. So again, hindering, hurting their economy. Good. Anything else? Parker, we did not talk about that yet. Yeah, good job. So reparations, right? The last one we mentioned, the last bird of the penalty of punishment is reparations. It's $132 billion to try to repay the bill back here. All the effects of the war, all the damages. Well, Germany, because it's the sole blame, the war guilt cause, they're the ones that have to pay up for the bill here. All right, so as you can see, this is a way to try to punish them, make sure that they never rise as a world power again. And with this treaty, this is a direct cause to World War II. So as we get closer to World War II, yeah, we're going to talk about the gap in between here. But as we get closer to ramping up to the war and we see the rise of dictators, the Treaty of Versailles is a direct cause of World War II. Because, well, they're just trying to humiliate Germany, trying to embarrass, trying to really take away their power as a country so that they can never rise again. All right, so with the treaty, again, is this really providing peace? Not really. No, it isn't. It's trying to burden Germany to make sure that they never rise as a world power. All right, one thing to note with the Treaty of Versailles, which today I want to talk about with the League of Nations, is that when they're having these negotiations, when they're talking about the land that's maybe going to be divided up, okay, Japan was a part of the Allied powers. They were. And they were successful at taking down a lot of the military bases that Germany had in Asia. But you think Japan will be recognized along with the other European powers, the Allied powers that were successful in World War I? Chris?
I know that they got them occupied, but otherwise.
Yeah, good job, right? So yeah, they got a few islands here that maybe Germany occupied in Asia, but for the most part, all right, they really got the short end of the stick. And they weren't seen as equal as these other European powers, which is going to anger them to a point where they actually walked out of the treaty negotiations. So you can see already hostility rising. Italy, their promised land, right? At the end of this war, they got a little bit, but was it as much as they were promised by Great Britain? What? No. So you can see Italy kind of striving away too, right? You can see them a little bit angry with the decisions with the Treaty of Versailles. Germany, right? Obviously, they're not too happy because they got the whole blame, reparations, military shrunk it down, loss of territories. Oh, guess what? So when we talk about World War II, the Axis powers, the enemy of the Allied powers, we got Germany, clearly, Japan, and Italy. So you can see them already building tensions, hostilities towards the Allied powers because simply they weren't recognized. They weren't allowed to have, let's say, the same seat at the table as these other European powers or the Allied powers. Okay, all right, so here are your terms today. I know it's a little bit of a longer one, but we're going to be talking about this treaty quite a bit moving forward. All right, so, and this is the last year terms. Well, no, I lie. We will talk about a few more building into tensions after World War I. A lot of it with the Red Scare, Sacco and Vanzetti. Oh boy. And then we will talk about Germany post-World War I. All right, so we talked about a few of these names already, but I wanted to make sure I included David Lloyd Georgia, Great Britain, Clemenceau of France, the part of the Big Four, because they're the ones who are really laying it out to try to punish and burden Germany. All right, then you got the League of Nations, Wilson's 14 points, which the last point, the 14th point, is the creation of the League of Nations. Then you got reparations. There you go. All right, okay. So I do want to go over these slides here. So I'll go over these terms as we're going over slides. Plus, with the two men that are labeled up here, we already mentioned a part of the big four. Okay. And with the Treaty of Versailles, again, okay, this is going to pop back up when we get closer to World War II, as this is going to be a direct cause. I'll show you a political cartoon. It's a good one that really resembles the Treaty of Versailles and what's about to come of it. And one of them is Hitler. It's using the Treaty of Versailles. It's pretty much wrapped up inside of it, realizing that Germany's going to use this as fuel. They're going to use this as motivation to rise to power again. So yeah, the treaty, in all reality, it wasn't trying to form peace. It was just trying to burden, punish Germany to, again, eventually you'll see a rise of a dictator, rise of many dictators, and one especially with Hitler, use the Versailles Treaty as fuel, as motivation to try to build back Germany with what it once was, this Aryan country, right? All right, so here's some pictures, right? We already mentioned with the Treaty of Versailles how it was signed in the Palace of Versailles. Maybe this was France's way to try to get back at Germany, right? Maybe this was a way to try to symbolize really Germany's fall. Okay, again, we talked about Kaiser Wilhelm I, how he was crowned after the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, 1871, and how he was crowned as the king, as the Kaiser with German unification. Well, what better way than for Germany to officially surrender and be burdened with all these punishments and penalties then at the same exact place? And we talked about the hall mirrors already. We mentioned about it. We did that virtual tour of it at the start of the year with Louis XIV. Okay, and really how magnificent it was. All right, and then there's a political cartoon, just really saying the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, right? Showing Germany, showing that they are going to be burdened with the effects of World War One, how the war will be blamed on them, all the guilt placed on them, reparations, restrictions, you name it. Okay, again, throwing fuel on the fire. All right, last thing I want to talk about is Wilson's plan for peace. All right, so as President Wilson comes into play here, yeah, the United States joined the war very late, 1917. Okay, and in all reality, a lot of these European powers look at the United States And they're depending on them because, let's face it, these other European countries, their industrial might has been taken down. Right? They lost a generation of men with this war. So who's going to be filling the factories? Well, not as many people as they realize. So their production is going to be limited. Right? France, Germany, right? A lot of their industries are destroyed. Pretty much all of European countries' factories are going to be impacted. The resources are going to be impacted. Right? So Great Britain, yeah, they aren't as affected as the United States when it comes to their production. But again, when you lose millions of men in a war like this, the United States not so much. They're going to be dependent on helping rebuild Europe. So the U.S., we'll talk about it here soon with the Dawes Plan. Their goal is to try to utilize their industries, their capitalist effort to rebuild Europe. Okay, and it works out for short term. And eventually, a depression comes along with oversupply and puts the world in a worldwide depression. And it not only just affects the United States, it affects everybody. So we'll talk about that here soon enough. But with President Wilson, one thing to note about him, though, right around this time, he does suffer a stroke. So with that, his mindset isn't particularly great. Right? He's struggling through just really keeping himself up. His health is in bad conditions. So a lot of these European countries just kind of look at him and say, you know what, maybe we can just hash this out ourselves. Maybe we can figure this out ourselves. But we all know with France, right? Okay, they're the ones that are going to be pretty much shaping this and trying to burden Germany. And this is where World War II already sees the start of it, the origins of it. Maybe if Wilson was in better health, maybe if Wilson, I don't know, was a little bit more capable of strengthening these terms of peace. And we'll talk about it with Congress. We actually don't join the League of Nations, even though it's Wilson's idea. Who knows? Maybe we could have prevented World War II. Never know. But he presents the 14 points, which I'll show you a picture of. It's on the next slide. It details about how they're going to reshape Europe, how they're going to try to benefit Europe after World War I. And the last point is the League of Nations. All right, the League of Nations is the predecessor to the United Nations, where all these countries would send their diplomats, their representatives to the world stage to try to hash out issues, concerns, problems, grievances before another war breaks out. On paper, it looks great, right? Yeah, it's a great idea. Try to have these representatives come together and talk about certain issues before another conflict like this breaks out. In a way, this is to try to prevent warfare from happening to really start peace. But, well, the United States Congress, they decide we're not going to join. Why? Why do you think our Congress says no to this idea? Even though Woodrow Wilson comes up with the League of Nations, our Congress says no. Why? Why do you think? Chris, go ahead.
They want America to basically stay out of the rest of the world affairs.
Yeah, good job, right? That plain and simple, that's really it, right? They thought, well, okay, we can see how joining this conflict really is it really is a burden to the United States. Again, we are separated, far separated from the rest of the world's concerns and problems and conflicts. So why not just stay out of it, stay isolated? Right, that was the whole idea, really building up to World War I, is that we can stay out of this war as long as possible. We have these oceans separating us from the rest of the world, from Asia, Europe, and why get involved? Right, this is a huge detriment to our population, to our people. Only bad things can come out of another war, come out of another conflict. So our Congress actually votes against the League of Nations. We say we don't want to be a part of it, we don't want to get involved, and we should stay out of this as long as possible. Right? Again, the whole idea is to stay out of the war, stay out of these grievances, stay out of these problems. So with the League of Nations, again, we don't join. Again, the last point, the 14th point, is the creation of the League of Nations. The rest of them just kind of hash out, solve some of the other issues that these European countries are facing. But again, like I mentioned, with Wilson's health, do you think these other European countries really take it for what it's worth? No, they don't. They try to hash it out, solve it on their own. Okay, yeah, they kind of maybe look at some of these points and say, yeah, this is a good idea, but we'll figure it out on our own terms. Okay, why are we going to listen to the United States, who's been a part of this war just for a short year, not even a full year? And in all reality, when it came to the casualties, the deaths, they didn't really take us too serious, right, when it came to that. All right, and then here's another political cartoon that represents the League of Nations. So you can see how the countries a part of the League of Nations is forming the bridge And then you have Uncle Sam sitting at the keystone, one of the most important parts of that bridge. Okay. Overall, without the keystone, without the centerpiece, is this bridge going to be, sustainable? Is it going to hold up for a long time? No, it's not. So this political cartoon, I think, really represents what the League of Nations was intending to do, what it was trying to establish, but without the centerpiece, without the keystone, there is no way that the U.S. can, or sorry, the League of Nations can hold up, right? And with the weaknesses of the Allied powers, with the weaknesses here of the United States not joining the League of Nations, well, there's only going to be conflict in the near future. All right, is there any questions? Any questions at all? All right, okay. Sorry about the whole key thing. I mean, I had to grab that key. Hopefully there's no commercial breaks or advertisements that were spoken in the recording. That would be great. Oh, good, good. So here's your assignment, the Treaty of Versailles. So after this, you should really know about this treaty, how this was trying to establish peace, not really, try to burden Germany. And then, yeah, that'll be great. So there's the assignment. The Treaty of Versailles, just published it for you. Here's what it looks like. Okay, so here's a link to the reading. And then the questions are attached. So I have this finished up for tomorrow. We'll review the League of Nations, and then we'll talk about some other concerns that impact the world after World War I. Uh-oh, maybe another outbreak. Oh, geez, of a virus. Oh, no, look out. Maybe the outbreak of another thing, the C word, communism. Red scare. All right, so there you go. Please work on that assignment, have that finished up for tomorrow. Great.